Now we're on video 3. Alright. Effect on nationalism. Effect on nationalism. Close links of nationalism and scientific racism help justify imperial expansion. We're better, so we must go take these lands over because we can make them better like us, right? So close links of nationalism and scientific racism help justify imperial expansion. It also resulted in domestic persecution, things like culture Kampf in Germany and what in France? It's the bell ringer. The Dreyfus affair, right? So it also it results in also domestic persecutions like culture Kampf and the Dreyfus affair. To race theorists, I don't mean to race theorists. I mean like the race theorists. Huh? What's that? I said this resulted in domestic persecution because it led to things like culture Kampf, trying to stamp out Catholicism and Dreyfus affair. To the race theorists of these countries, the nation was supposed to be racially pure, and ethnic minorities were outcasts or outsiders. So to make their countries better and stronger, we have to support the national race and make them better and better. So we have to get rid of all the inferior parts of that by like remove them from society.
But then who would they oppress?
Exactly.
They wouldn't have no.
In the late 1800s, Russian czars targeted Poles and Czechs for Russification. I would have that down. Russification was something that took place in Russia. Russia at this point, remember, it has a bunch of different ethnic groups. Russia also owns territory onto the Baltic as well as into like Eastern Europe. And so at that time, Russia also controlled Poles, like they still control Poland, or what would be Poland at this point. They also controlled Czechs. So like Alexander the Second, Third, Nicholas II are pushing Russification, a process that made those minorities learn Russian and try to become more Russian-like and assimilate in their culture.
So that makes a lot of sense because like Polish people like their culture like kind of similar to like Russian culture.
Right, but they still have their own language and like names and everything else.
Like wishes and yagas, like they have the little scars and stuff.
Sure. Yes.
And like the food is kind of similar too.
Right. So they're trying to force these guys to assimilate into their culture. There was some Germanization going on in Germany with Poles too. So there was also some Germanization. No one wanted there to be Polish people. They wanted either to be Russian or German, not Polish. All right. Questions or concern about this?
I'm concerned about a lot of things.
Yeah. Concerns, sure. But any like questions or comments?
How much more?
How much more? What? We got 13 minutes left.
No, he said.
Remember the lady that was
Oh, this is a big. I told you it's a big unit. It's a big unit. It's a lot. We're probably, let's see, are we halfway?
What?
1, 2,
We are,
3,
as of today,
4,
halfway.
5, 6,
We're
7,
halfway.
8, 7,
Yeah, but do you remember the lady that was like she was looking for
Sorry,
the and
sorry.
She's like, go 100 meters.
All right, here we go.
I'm at 17.
Turn the corner.
All
right. Jewish emancipation and modern anti-Semitism. There's a lot going on with these themes. There's a lot to cover in these topics. Jewish emancipation and modern anti-Semitism. The triumph... Oh, do you need to write the title?
Yep.
Okay. The Jewish emancipation and modern anti-Semitism. Yeah. How's it working out?
Pretty good. I got like 3 pages of notes so far.
All right. The triumph of the nation-state revolutionized Jewish life in Western Europe because they're like, hey, what if we made our own state again? Since we haven't had one since the time of like the Roman Empire. Yeah. So there's a Jewish movement in the late 1800s in Europe, and not from one particular country, but Jews have always been the outcasts, always been kind of pushed aside. They never have been seen as part of the actual culture. So there's a movement to basically start to think, what if we make our own state as well? So Jewish relations began to change around 1848. After that wave of revolutions in 1848, it led to more rights in Germany and Austria. So the revolution of 1848 led to Jews finally getting more rights in Germany and Austria, which where a lot of them were.
Wait, revolution of what?
Germany and Austria. Remember there was like a bunch of revolutions throughout Europe that year? So it led to more people getting rights as a result. And so when they started getting more rights, they're like, hey, what if, we had our own country to give our own self rights? In 1871, the German Empire abolished all restrictions on Jewish marriage, occupations, residence, and ownership of property. So under Bismarck in 71, the German Empire abolished all restrictions on Jewish marriage, occupations, places of residence, and property ownership. Probably because he thought, if I do this, I'll get what? I'll get more support from them. Exactly. He doesn't get voted in office, But. So, in 71, in German Empire, they abolished all restrictions on Jewish marriage, occupations, where they could live, property ownership. So, in spite of them getting legal discrimination gone away, they still have social discrimination, right? Like in America, you have Jim Crow laws. Even if there weren't Jim Crow laws, there was still a lot of what? Racism and persecution and everything else. So the Jews are facing the same situation. While there's no official laws now, they still face a lot of persecution. All right, so next is embracing opportunities. Embracing opportunities. So because of the relaxation of discrimination throughout Europe, more opportunities are opening up for Jews in the late 1800s. So Jewish people get more opportunities for jobs in the late 1800s in business, in the arts, and other various professions. So they get more opportunities in business, the arts, and other professions by the late 1800s. They excelled at things like trade, banking and finance. They excelled at trade, banking and finance, consumer industries. So they excelled at things like trade, banking and finance, consumer industries, journalism, medicine, law.
So everything.
Okay.
They're just people.
Everything.
That's everything. Yeah, exactly. So they excelled at trade, banking and finance, consumer industries, journalism, medicine, and law.
I feel like they'd be just as good at things as Christian people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's a lot
sure.
of generalizations you have.
So what do you mean?
Listen, this is
I
not
mean,
like
they excelled at everyday jobs.
Are we saying that there's a
they did very well at many things.
Attacking him over nothing.
Many had also started to become middle class too. So in Europe, after the 70s and 80s, a lot of the Jewish people become middle class people too. So now they can have opportunities to get better jobs. They're going to work their way into middle class by the 70s and 80s.
They're good at their jobs and now they're middle class.
Yes.
This
They
is
get.
what I've said
They are able to
for
get.
years.
No. They're able to get better. They're able to get better jobs. Thus, they can be better at their
Because
jobs.
They are skilled.
Correct. Yes.
So
What's
therefore.
better than being like a lawyer?
A liar?
Maybe a lawyer. I don't know.
Like some Russian there.
All right. Anti-Semitic persecutions.
They just got it.
Poor baby.
Look, they are getting more liberalization. Doesn't mean that things are better, right? All right. Vicious anti-Semitism reappeared in Central and Eastern Europe after the stock market crash in '73. So after you have that, and we mentioned this a while back, the long depression of the late 1800s. In that long depression period, they're looking for someone to blame, right? So you have the market crashes, 11 unemployment rates in the 70s and 80s.
Didn't bank well enough.
So they blame it on who?
The Jews.
The Jews. So in Central and Eastern Europe, there's a lot of persecution towards Jews. After the long depression starts in 1873, other Europeans drew on religious intolerance and segregation into ghettos to carry out anti-Semitism. So, like, with the rise of nationalism, they're seeing Jews as more different. Some countries will become so aggressive they'll do pogroms against them. So, like, the Russians in this time are like the ones who do pogroms against them the most. So Russia in the late 1800s do pogroms against Jews where they force them into ghettos.
You mean programs?
No, pogroms.
Oh.
P-O-G-R-O. Yeah,
It sounded
pogroms.
you saying like pogroms.
No, pogroms. So pogroms are like when they target and like oppress the Jewish people.
By like violent, like are they getting fists?
Yes,
Oh.
violent, killing them or like
Oh.
forcing them to relocate.
No.
There's even some occasional riots that break out over Jewish people, like against them, because they want them.
Serious?
Yes.
All they're doing is reading their Torah. Like
No, not here.
they're
Just
not.
existing.
They caused the market to crash. So, anti-Semites created resentment against Jewish achievement and Jewish financial control. They thought they're so successful and they control banks and finances so well. They did to us. They want to be successful. They want to hurt us. They hate us. So anti-Semites created resentment against Jewish achievement, and they resented their financial control of like businesses or like loan companies. So they thought Jewish people or the Jewish race posed a biological threat to Christians.
Oh.
So they thought the Jewish race posed a biological threat to Christians.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. See where this is going.
How is it biological?
Because remember we talked about how the races are so different, right?
Because if you marry one of them.
Right. You're diluting the race. You're diluting the superior intellect of the German people.
I'm sorry, but no, like, for real?
They so jealous.
You say that, but the same things we call it here in America, like white and black.
I mean, very true. I like, but still, like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
really?
How mad?
All right. Anti-Semitic political impact. This is something that's in the key concepts. Anti-Semitism also made national political parties that attacked and insulted Jewish people. So anti-Semitism also led to national political parties that attacked and insulted Jewish people to win support. So in Austria, you have the prime example. In Austria, you have this guy in this party, who are the key concepts to be aware of. In Austria, you had Karl Lueger, who helped develop the Christian Socialist Party. He won big election victories in Austria by playing up on Jewish fears. Like basically, talking about how Jews are a threat and everything else, and Jews are ruining our culture and blah, blah, blah. So Karl Lueger ends up becoming mayor of Vienna. He ends up becoming mayor of Vienna with his Christian Socialist Party. Bless you. So as mayor, he preached very anti-Semitic views around the turn of the century. Who was living in Austria around the turn of the century listening to all these anti-Jewish viewpoints?
Who got He's just trying to get to art school.
Who got rejected from art school? Just has an axe to grind.
Because he got rejected because he's damn Jews.
So just keep that in mind that all this hyper-nationalism was already there when World War I starts, and they're already very anti-Jewish. So when Germany loses the war, they're like, oh man, who we can blame this on? And all that Jewish hatred's been building up for decades now, and it's like Jews,
They lose
right?
the war, the Jews are like in their homes, are like, oh no.
Oh.
Coming for us now.
We gotta go.
All right. So this is one example. Karl Lueger becoming mayor and rising to power off this anti-Semitism hatred. Russian pogroms are the other big example in the late 1800s of Jewish persecution. Before 1914, anti-Semites were the most oppressive in Eastern Europe, especially Russia. So before 1914, because then Germany will take that crown, before 1914, anti-Semitism was the most oppressive in East Europe, and especially in Russia. 4 million of Europe's 7 million Jews lived in Russia, with few legal rights. So 4 million of Europe's Jews lived in Russia of the 7 million.
They
And they
probably
had-
fled from there to go to Germany and then had to flee from Germany.
They do go to other parts of Europe, but a lot of them come where? America. So-
Treated so much better.
Well, relatively speaking, yes, but
I mean, it's not optimal, but like that-
Russian Jews were regularly denounced as foreign exploiters who corrupted national traditions. So Russian Jews were regularly denounced as foreign exploiters who corrupted national traditions. So in 1881, 1882, under Alex III. So in 1881, 1882, under Alex III, a wave of violent pogroms commenced in southern Russia. So in 1881, 1882, a wave of violent pogroms commenced in southern Russia under Alex III.
His dad's like looking down like, what are you doing?
The police and army stood by as they watched peasants loot and destroy Jewish property. So the government allowed them to destroy. What's that? Basically.
Pre-game for Christmas.
All right. See you later.